We got him. Those 3 words from Trump's post this morning are the most important 3 words of this entire war. And I am going to tell you the full story of what happened in those mountains. The real story, not the Pentagon briefing, not the 2-paragraph statement from U.S. Central Command, the story of 48 hours of one man hiding in the dark on 7,000-foot ridge lines in the Zagros Mountains while 2 nations raced to reach him first. And then I am going to tell you about the 48-hour ultimatum Trump issued on the same morning, the deadline that expires Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and what happens to this war, and to the world's oil supply and your gas prices and every economy connected to the Strait of Hormuz when that clock runs out. I am Michael Turner, and both of these stories are happening simultaneously right now, and the mainstream coverage is giving you neither one fully. Let us start with the rescue. Because before we talk about ultimatums and deadlines, there is a human being at the center of this story, a colonel, a weapons systems officer, a man who was sitting in the back seat of an F-15E Strike Eagle when Iran's surface-to-air missile found it, who ejected into the darkness over southwestern Iran, who hit the rocky ground of the Zagros Mountains injured and alone, and who spent the next 48 hours doing something that requires a kind of discipline most of us cannot even imagine, surviving, evading, hiding, trusting that America would come for him. Let me take you inside those 48 hours, because this part of the story is not in the briefings. When the F-15E was hit, both crew members ejected, the pilot and the colonel, but they ejected at altitude, which means the wind took their parachutes in different directions. By the time they touched ground, they were separated, a mile apart, maybe 2. In mountainous terrain so rugged that even military vehicles cannot move quickly through it. Steep, jagged ridgelines topping over 7,000 feet, deep rocky valleys, loose shale slopes, the kind of terrain that breaks ankles on a good day. The pilot was recovered in the initial push. U.S. helicopters went in, took incoming fire from Iranian tribesmen on the ground. The HH-60W Jolly Greens took serious hits. Crew members on those helicopters were wounded, but they got the pilot out and made it back to base. Those helicopter crews were heroes before the colonel's story even began, but the colonel was somewhere else, somewhere in the mountains, injured from the landing, alone, and the entire region was now activated against him. Iran put out a $60,000 bounty, $60,000 for any Iranian civilian, any tribesman, any local who could locate and deliver an American colonel to the IRGC. In one of the poorest rural regions of Iran, that is generational wealth. That turned every person in the surrounding mountains into a potential hunter. Villagers, shepherds, militia members, all of them with eyes on the terrain, all of them motivated, all of them being coordinated by Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces who were simultaneously deploying their own elite units and sending drones over the ridgelines. And the colonel knew all of this because SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, the training every American aircrew member goes through before flying combat missions, prepares you for exactly this scenario, prepares you for the moment after the ejection, prepares you for the cold and the pain and the knowledge that you are being hunted. Here is what he almost certainly did in those first hours. The moment he hit the ground, training takes over. Move away from the crash site immediately. The burning wreckage is a beacon. Every Iranian within 20 miles can see the smoke. Get distance. Use the terrain. Stay low. Stay in shadow. Move uphill where patrols cannot move quickly. Find a crevice in the rock, a fold in the terrain, somewhere small and dark and hard to see from above, and then do the one thing that is hardest to do when every instinct is screaming at you to move, to run, to get somewhere safer. Stop, be still, breathe. The combat survival radio he carried is the size of a small handheld device, and it is worth more than any weapon in that moment. It does not broadcast voice continuously. That would allow Iranian direction-finding equipment to triangulate his position in minutes. Instead, it sends short, encrypted data bursts via satellite that frequency hop and appear as noise to anyone intercepting them. Preloaded messages, injured but mobile, enemy active nearby, requesting extraction window, short, precise, untraceable. and U.S. Central Command, from the moment those signals started coming in, was building a picture. Intelligence assets focused on his location. CIA resources activated. Satellite coverage repositioned. The picture developing in real time of exactly where he was, what was around him, how the Iranian search was progressing. For 48 hours he stayed hidden, moving only at night, staying motionless during daylight when IRGC patrols were active in the valleys below him, rationing the emergency rations in his survival kit, managing his injuries, conserving energy while his body fought the cold at altitude and the pain of whatever he had sustained on landing, every sound analyzed, every distant voice from a valley below evaluated, every drone hum overhead treated as an immediate threat. And he was right to treat them as threats, because Iranian forces were getting closer. Reports from inside the operation confirm that IRGC units and local militias had narrowed the search area to what they called the Black Mountain Zone. They were closing in. The bounty was drawing more civilians into the search, and time was running out. U.S. Central Command went into full go mode. The rescue package that launched was not a simple helicopter pickup. This was a full special operations assault into one of the most heavily monitored pieces of airspace in the current conflict, in the middle of the night, deep into Iranian territory, near missile bases and nuclear sites south of Isfahan. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, provided the air mobility. These are the pilots who train specifically for this, who fly at night at low altitude using terrain masking to avoid radar, who operate with the lights off in the darkest conditions imaginable and land with precision. They brought in the MH-6 Little Birds for rapid insertion and fire support, and the HH-60W Jolly Greens for heavy combat rescue airlift. On the ground, Air Force pararescuemen, the PJs, whose motto is "so that others may live," went in first to locate and stabilize the colonel. They were backed by Navy SEALs, Delta Force operators, Green Berets, an integrated special operations team representing the absolute best of what America's warrior class can do. MC-130J Commando 2 aircraft slipped into austere landing strips deep behind enemy lines. A C-295W from the Air Force Special Operations Command's 427th Squadron, a rare and secretive platform, was tracked flying at low altitude over Iran during the operation. A-10 Thunderbolts overhead with their GAU-8 cannons, ready to put 3,900 rounds per minute into anything that threatened the rescue force. MQ-9 Reaper drones providing eyes in the sky, electronic warfare aircraft jamming Iranian radar and communications so the IRGC could not coordinate its response. They reached the colonel, linked up with him in his hiding spot, stabilized him on the spot, and started moving him toward the extraction point. That is when Iranian forces hit them. IRGC units who had been closing in on the colonel's position triggered a full engagement when they realized the rescue was happening. The firefight that followed was intense and close. U.S. Special Operations Forces unleashed everything they had. A-10s rolled in with close air support. Little Birds added rockets and minigun fire. The noise and violence of the engagement in those mountains, in the dark, at altitude, was unlike anything a rescue operation usually involves. And here is the part that tells you exactly how fierce it was. Two of the MC-130J Commando 2 aircraft that landed at the forward austere airstrip to extract the force got bogged down in soft sand, wheels sinking. No way to get them airborne safely. With Iranian forces closing on the extraction point, with the colonel stabilized but needing to get out, with the entire rescue force now at the forward strip, there was no time. U.S. Special Operations teams rigged demolition charges and destroyed both aircraft in place. Set them ablaze, thick black smoke rising from millions of dollars of American military aviation burning in Iranian territory, because leaving them behind to be reverse engineered by Iran was not an option. Burned out Little Birds were also left at the engagement site, evidence of how hot the firefight got. 3 replacement aircraft came in and extracted the entire force, the colonel, the rescue teams, everyone, back into friendly airspace. Not one American killed during the entire operation. Trump posted immediately. He said, "We have rescued the seriously wounded and really brave F-15 crew member officer from deep inside the mountains of Iran. The Iranian military was looking hard in big numbers and getting close. He is a highly respected colonel. This type of raid is seldom attempted because of the danger to man and equipment. It just doesn't happen." And Trump is right about that. It just does not happen. Because penetrating defended Iranian airspace, fighting through IRGC resistance, extracting a wounded airman from a contested mountainous terrain zone near nuclear sites, and getting everyone out without a single American killed is exactly the kind of operation that gets studied in military schools for decades afterward. So that is what happened in the mountains. That is what the briefing did not tell you. And that is the military context for everything that comes next. Because on the same morning that Trump posted, "We got him," he also posted something else, something that moved this war into its most dangerous phase yet. Trump posted on Truth Social. He said, quote, "Remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait? Time is running out, 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. Glory be to God. This is not a threat. This is a promise. 48 hours. The deadline is Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern." Now let me explain why this ultimatum is the most consequential threat Trump has made in this entire conflict, and why the next 48 hours will determine not just the course of this war, but the shape of the global economy for the next several years. The Strait of Hormuz is the single most important choke point in the global energy system. Before Iran closed it, roughly 20% of the world's entire oil supply moved through that narrow passage every day. Every tanker leaving the Persian Gulf with oil from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, and Iran itself had to transit Hormuz. It is irreplaceable. There is no alternative route. Ships cannot reroute around it. If it is closed, that oil does not move. Iran shut Hormuz in the early weeks of this war as its primary economic weapon, and it has worked. Oil prices have surged. Gas prices in the United States are close to $4 per gallon. European energy costs are elevated. Asian manufacturing costs are rising because energy is more expensive. Every week, Hormuz stays closed. The global economy bleeds a little more. And Trump has now given Iran until Monday night to either reopen Hormuz or agree to a peace deal. And if Iran does neither, Trump has promised, in his exact words, all hell. We know what all hell means, Trump told us. 85 power plants, water treatment facilities, desalination plants, transportation infrastructure, communication networks, the systematic destruction of everything that makes Iran functional as a modern state. What he called, in a nationally televised address, bringing Iran back to the Stone Ages where they belong, that is all hell. And Senator Lindsey Graham, after speaking directly with Trump on Saturday, posted publicly that he is completely convinced Trump will follow through. Graham said, and I am quoting directly, "I am completely convinced that he will use overwhelming military force against the regime if they continue to impede the Strait of Hormuz and refuse a diplomatic solution." Graham told Iran to choose wisely. But Iran is not choosing wisely by Trump's definition of the phrase. Iran responded to the ultimatum within hours. Iranian officials called it helpless and nervous. The Iranian military command issued a statement saying that Trump's ultimatum reflects the desperation of a leader who has failed to achieve his objectives through military force. They said they have survived weeks of bombing, survived the assassination of their supreme leader, defended their territory against the most powerful military in the world, and they will not surrender because of a 48-hour deadline. So Iran is calling the bluff, betting that Trump will not actually launch the total infrastructure destruction he is promising. And the reasoning behind that bet is not irrational. Iran is watching Trump's pattern. He set an original 10-day deadline, extended it, set a new deadline. And now with 48 hours left, Iran is asking whether this is another extension waiting to happen. But here is why this moment is different from every other ultimatum in this war. Trump is now trapped in a corner he built himself. He has publicly stated a specific deadline with a specific consequence, April 6th, 8 p.m. all hell. He has his closest Senate ally publicly confirming it is real. He cannot quietly let it pass without consequence now. The entire world is watching. Every government on earth has taken note of this deadline. Every oil market is priced around it. Every American ally is holding their breath. If the deadline passes and Iran has not complied and Trump does not act, the political damage to Trump's credibility is catastrophic and permanent, not just in Washington. In every capital that has been watching this war and trying to assess whether American threats mean anything. But if Trump follows through, if Monday night at 8 p.m. the strikes on Iranian infrastructure begin, the humanitarian consequences are staggering. Hospitals lose power, water treatment plants shut down, cities go dark, disease spreads, and the international community, including European allies who have already been discussing sanctions against the United States, responds in ways that could reshape American foreign relationships for a generation. There is no clean option here. Trump has three choices, and all of them have serious costs. He launches full strikes, total infrastructure destruction as promised. This proves his credibility and accelerates the collapse of the Iranian government's capacity to function. But it creates a humanitarian catastrophe, kills civilians through loss of power and water, and isolates America internationally in ways that no military victory can easily repair. He extends the deadline again, finds a reason, claims Pakistan requested more time, claims negotiations are progressing. This keeps the catastrophe at bay and keeps talks alive. But it proves to Iran and to every other adversary watching that American deadlines are not deadlines. They are suggestions, and that lesson outlasts this war. He launches limited strikes, hits some infrastructure but not all, claims this is all hell. This is the face-saving middle path. But Iran will see immediately that Trump did not go all the way. And Iran's assessment of how far Trump is actually willing to go will harden in its favor. All three options are bad. And that is not a coincidence. That is the consequence of public maximalist threats attached to specific public deadlines. When you promise all hell by Monday at 8 p.m., you have to either deliver all hell or accept that your threats are not credible anymore. Iran is betting on the second option, is betting that 48 hours from now, Trump extends again, that the deadline slides, that all hell remains a threat rather than becoming a reality. Iran might be right, but here is what I want you to understand about why this moment matters, regardless of which option Trump chooses. The successful rescue of the colonel from Iranian soil this morning changed something important. It proved that the United States can operate inside Iranian territory, can fight Iranian forces, can execute complex missions against active resistance, and succeed. That capability does not go away when the rescue helicopter lands. Those same special operations forces, those same Night Stalker pilots, those same Reaper drones and A-10s and electronic warfare aircraft, they are still there, still operational, still capable of going back in. Iran knows this, and that knowledge is part of what makes the next 48 hours so unpredictable. Because Iran is trying to calculate not just whether Trump will launch the promised infrastructure strikes. Iran is calculating what America is capable of doing that it has not yet shown, what operations are being planned, what intelligence has been gathered, what comes next. And the answer to that question, in the aftermath of a rescue mission that went deep into the heart of Iranian territory near nuclear sites and missile bases and extracted an American colonel without losing a single soldier, is that the answer is more than Iran expected. That is the message the rescue sent, not just to the American public. To Tehran, I am Michael Turner. And in the next 48 hours, one of three things will happen. Trump launches all hell, and this war becomes something qualitatively different. Trump extends the deadline and confirms that his timelines are negotiating tools rather than real commitments. Or something happens in the negotiations, some movement from Iran on Hormuz or on terms, that gives Trump a reason to pause that is not a retreat. Any of those three outcomes reshapes what comes next. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now because the Monday night deadline is the most important moment this war has produced. I will be covering it in real time, breaking down exactly what Trump does and exactly what it means the moment it happens. Tell me in the comments, do you think Trump follows through on Monday night, or does the deadline slide again? And do you think Iran will blink before 8 p.m.? I will see you in the next update.